That's the angle we want.
What'd you say?
We gotta get some textbooks.
What do you think?
Hello.
Hi, welcome. Are y'all like just coordinating, like, where's our best angle?
Yeah, we were. We're
Yeah.
like, what's behind us?
I love that. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having us.
We are thrilled to have you here to kind of share a little bit about your special interest group. I know that this is like a hot topic a lot of people are discussing in terms of like your group and really like what you do. So we're excited.
Oh, cool.
Oh, good. Glad to hear it.
Tell me, how long is this? About 45 minutes? Does it matter? Is there a plan?
So it never goes over an hour. I'm going to kind of navigate through that kind of script that we were talking about. I have a couple of extra questions depending on like, if we have a lot of questions from the group, it kind of moves it along. If it's not, there's a few built-in additional questions, but I kind of use those prompts to try and kind of encourage you to talk and brag on all the great things that you do.
Okay, sounds good.
Can do.
I brought my coffee so that we're literally having a fireside chat. I was like, okay.
Please do. Please do.
Prop this energy drink, but I'm not gonna kick that back on camera.
We could
bring
have
in the
fun with
water.
this and had a big fire behind us. We could have had fun.
I know that would be great. I love that.
TV.
Yeah, exactly.
What if we turn this way and get that one up?
We could.
No, we couldn't. Let's
No,
not.
no.
Let's not make things harder than they need to be.
Well, I am so grateful that y'all were willing to come on and have a little chat with us because I know that this is like an exciting special interest group and you've had some exciting changes, especially with your title name or your group's name.
Yeah, we just wanted to make it clear. It seemed like it was Beth that brought it up and said that people thought maybe it was about sustaining your like CLC, like more like budget and operations and things like that, which was not the purpose of the group. So
However, if we follow some of these practices, we may be more sustainable in that way.
correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everything comes down to money. This does help with the money. Sometimes you have to make a little short-term investment, but it always pays out.
And I have to guess if we that somebody will bring up that question about like, looking at, cost and benefit, because I think that's a big topic people are curious about.
We should probably just bring that up, actually.
Yeah.
Where should we do that? We should say that.
So what I typically like to do is like I'll welcome everybody and I'll talk a little bit about some housekeeping. And then I'm going to kind of introduce myself, kind of shout out the membership committee and have them introduce themselves as well. Get everybody to introduce themselves in the chat and then have you all introduce yourselves too and kind of go from there.
Sure.
Sounds good.
Off camera, drink my energy drink in the meantime.
You're gonna sweep in and sweep out.
Mhm. I'll just pop in and do my questions. It'll keep it visually interesting.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, you're right.
And then Lori and Kim, are you able to kind of monitor the chat as we navigate through?
Yes, yeah.
I know, Lori, you always do such a great job of that.
Oh, well, thank you. I feel like I miss things sometimes, but anyway, but yeah, we'll watch the chat for you, make sure that those questions or comments get addressed.
We are blurry though, aren't we?
Are we?
A little bit. I wonder if it's just our.
Oh, yeah.
No, it's the same. I think it's just our work computers.
Yeah.
They are what they are.
True.
That's why I don't use them.
Yeah, compared to them.
Yeah.
And maybe it's because we're so far away.
Maybe not that far.
Yeah, it's true.
No, just the blurry up close. Just too bad. I mean,
We're
it's very,
critiquing our.
yeah. It's like having auto tune on your face.
Yeah.
It's very blurred.
I'm wondering how I can get a blur happening. I was like, because you look amazing, you two. So
The Dell laptop, I guess. I don't know. That's the key to all of this.
I'm waiting for the AI to kick in with all the
Yeah.
filters.
Oh, they already are. Yeah,
Are they?
that's already a thing.
Sure.
Mhm.
If you click on that little arrow where it says video, you should be able to choose blur background from there.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
we're talking about the blur on our faces.
Yeah.
We look a little blurry compared to all of you.
you
you
look
look
great
fine.
from where we're sitting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ariel, just to refresh my memory, Saturday, December, no fireside chat. Is that
Nothing
Or-
scheduled
to be determined?
to be
Okay.
determined. Like it seems like we typically don't because everybody's so busy in December or everybody goes on vacation.
Yeah.
But it's completely up to you and completely up to committee.
I'll leave it up to TBD.
Good place to be. Good to see you outside of our formal meetings, Kim. Hi.
Yeah.
How's everything going in your neck of the woods? Weather still holding up for you?
Yeah, everything's fine. It's gorgeous. Nice fall, sunny, 70 degrees. Can't beat that.
Mm,
No more rain, so
wow.
where I'm at anyways.
Good.
Is it getting cold where you guys are? You got frost on the ground yet?
Oh, so
It's, yeah.
I don't think we've gotten true frost yet, but
Mhm.
the windshields are covered in the morning, with lots of dew, and I'm like, oh, here we go.
It's coming. It's coming for us.
Anybody's kids dressing up in snowsuits underneath their Halloween costumes, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's how I was raised in Canada. I was like, you had your school costume, which was cute, and then you had your going out trick-or-treating costume that allowed you to wear 85 layers underneath it.
Yes. Whereabouts in Canada are you from?
I'm from Alberta. I'm from Calgary.
Oh, there you go. All right. My
Yeah.
husband's just outside of Edmonton. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah. They that's real cold. All right. Alberta's real cold.
Michigan's enough for me. I don't need any of that Canadian cold. I don't think I can handle it.
We don't
Where's
get the
Celine
wind.
Dion from?
That's true.
I think that's way over East Coast,
Mhm.
kind of. So they get a lot of snow, not quite as much cold.
I don't want either, to be frank. I live in the wrong place. Is Alberta where Celine Dion is from?
I think she's
Oh.
over in Quebec, if I'm not
Yeah, Quebec,
mistaken.
Montreal. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, with the French. Yeah. That makes sense. Is the French only a Montreal thing? There's no other provinces where that's really.
There's certain areas of Ontario that have a strong French input, but yes, Montreal's has their own French language. And
Yeah.
a lot of their documents, I think they're transitioning now, if I understand, they're transitioning all their government documents into their own French as well. So if you live
Yeah.
there, you need to know the language. So
And interestingly enough, Canada's always had two languages, English and French, or the actual both languages are always represented. So one side of your cereal box is English, one side of your cereal box is French. You learn both languages in school and
Mhm.
whatnot. So, oh, Ariel, are we at time? All right,
Yeah, 3 o'clock already.
excellent.
And you'll have more people join as we.
Absolutely. So we're just going to give everybody a couple of minutes as we join and as everybody is kind of connecting to sound. All right. Well, I just want to say welcome everybody to our October Fireside Chat. thrilled to have everybody joining us today. Wanted to just do a quick reminder that these meetings really provide us all an opportunity to be able to join in conversation as we explore different opportunities, special interest groups, and just general groups within INACSL. We get a little bit of a snapshot as to what each of these groups has to offer, and we have an opportunity to ask any of the questions we've always wanted to ask. These meetings do occur year-round. They are every other month, and each meeting does cover a different way you can get involved with INACSL, with a different committee or special interest group being highlighted at each meeting. Now, if you have any questions at any time during our conversation or during our chat, please feel free to pop it into the chat, the actual formal chat, and we will have somebody who can make sure that we get your question answered as we navigate through this. You can also use the Q&A feature. We'll be looking at both. Now, for some reason, if you are struggling with any technical difficulties during our time together, I want to encourage you to email inaxlinfo@inaxl.org. So that email again is inaxlinfo@inaxl.org if you're having any technical issues during our time together. My name is Nicola Contreras, and as I mentioned before, just thrilled to welcome you to October's Fireside Chat. I'm the chair of the membership committee and have the pleasure of hosting our time together today. I've been with INACSL for a number of years and just thrilled to be a part of this committee and get an opportunity to visit with these special interest groups as we meet every other week, or every other month rather. I'm pretty excited about our topic today, but before we introduce the topic and our speakers, what I'd love to do is I am joined by members of the membership committee. I'd love to have the membership committee who are here today introduce themselves, and then we'll move on to those who are attending, and then we'll get an opportunity to visit with our speakers and get to know a little bit about who they are. So membership committee, would you mind introducing yourselves?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Julie Fomenko. I'm at the University of Central Oklahoma and happy to be here.
I'm Lori Greer. I'm at Erlanger Health in Chattanooga and happy to be here and excited to hear what you have to say too.
I don't know how I'm supposed to go or not, but I'm Beth Hallmark and I'm the board liaison for the membership committee. And I previously worked with the sustainability or whatever their new name is going to be committee. And just a real quick plug, if y'all haven't listened to Lori's new podcast, you should listen to it. Lori, it was really funny and good. Good job.
Oh, I love that. Great.
Yeah, it's really good.
Excellent. For those of you joining us, if you would be so kind as to put into the chat where you're joining us from. So introduce yourself, pop yourself into the chat so we can get an idea of who is joining us around the fire today.
Hey, Nicola, it looks like they're terming it environmental sustainability.
Yes, we're going to talk a little bit about that shortly. It's pretty exciting to hear about like cutting edge, a change that is happening as we speak with our special interest group. So I see that we're starting to pop our names into the chat. This is great. So nice to see who's joining us today.
And Liz is driving, so we will excuse her. No typing.
That is fair. And we are happy that you are driving and not chatting at the same time. Great. Wonderful. And we still have people joining us, so that's wonderful. Well, at this point, I'd sure love to introduce our topic. We're going to be talking about sustainability and simulation, paving the way for a greener tomorrow. And I would love if our esteemed guests would be so kind as to introduce yourselves. Tell us a little bit about where you're joining us from, too.
Okay. My name is Deb Lee. I'm a clinical assistant professor at the University of Michigan School of Nursing and also director of the Clinical Learning Center. I primarily teach in the graduate program. So I teach in the acute care nurse practitioner program, and I work in the ICU and have clinically for the last almost 20 years now. So I really enjoy the mix of working with students and then also being able to practice at the same time. So
Yeah, same. So I'm Jessica Marsak. I'm also a clinical assistant professor at the University of Michigan School of Nursing. So Deb is part of my leadership team here in our clinical learning center. I am a med-surg nurse through and through. I work adult internal medicine, a little bit of everything all the time. So I work in undergraduate in med-surg because that's a really clear line between my practice, my scholarship, my teaching. Everything's really tightly linked for me, which is nice. And then we had some of these ancillary topics like our environmental work.
Mhm.
Excellent. Are we joined by anybody else in your committee or your special interest group?
Kim Clark is part of our group.
Yeah, Kim. Would you like to share a little bit about yourself, Kim?
I work in the simulation suite and then running labs over here at Wake Tech Community College.
Great, wonderful. Well, we're so thrilled to have you all here today. Now, before we get started, I think we've already mentioned that there has been a change in the name of your special interest group. Can you tell us about your new name?
Yeah, so we just wanted to update the name. We've been going by Sustainability SIG, and I guess there was a little bit of confusion. I think maybe Beth or Liz were the ones who pointed it out, so thank you for that note. It seemed like sustainability was being taken more as looking at the lifespan of your CLC and making sure that you can sustainably run it in terms of budget or finance, which is linked to what we do in environmental sustainability, and we will touch on that a little bit. But really the goal of this special interest group is environment sustainability. So how do we reduce, reuse, recycle, more of those kinds of concepts?
I love that. Thank you so much. Well, what I'd love to do is start off just getting an idea about how you got involved with this specific sustainability, with this specific special interest group.
Okay, I can kind of start. It happened actually during COVID. We were all working within the CLC, and everybody had gone home, and so we were cleaning and whatnot. But we realized that we had so many plastics that we were throwing away on a regular basis, and so we started actually, because we had the time, started after every simulation collecting the plastics and trying to really put an objective number. And before you know it, we had 300 pounds of IV tubing that had been collected through the fall semester. And this absolutely enormous barrel of plastics that we would have thrown out. And so we started thinking, what are we doing? Is there any way to reuse this or recycle this? And Melissa Batish, the previous president and kind of co-founder with me, we said, you know, we really need to see if we can't work within other centers and find out what other people are doing, and if there's a way to reuse this and also save money, right? That we wanted to do that. So this was really our effort to reach across the nation and kind of learn the best practices within the different simulation centers.
And so I caught wind of what they were doing. I came into the school in 2018, I believe, 18 or 19. So I had 1 year before COVID really hit. And I kind of heard about what they were doing, and they had sent out an internal survey about sustainability and what people would be willing to engage in and not engage in, and what people were doing and not doing. So they were doing this internal assessment, just trying to figure out, you know, what are we doing within our own institution? It seems like people are maybe interested or trying to do something, but we're not communicating with each other on the topic. So I saw that survey, I got interested, asked if I could be involved in any way, if there was something else we were going to do moving forward. So really it was leadership driven for us, which is nice. When you have leadership involved and interested, it's a lot easier to carry a project from there.
Oh, that's so true. That's so true. I find it interesting as you were kind of speaking about like what got this started. I think about all of the amazing things that like have changed since COVID, where we had an opportunity to pull over and look at like how we do what we do. And this really is one I hadn't even considered. Like at the end of the day, we start thinking about what is left behind. I think it's amazing that you were able to kind of collect all of that information and then think about how to move it forward, not just for yourselves, but for others.
Well, it's true.
yeah.
If you think about during COVID, you know, people, you used to just take for granted that there was tons of, right? Tons of gloves, tons of gowns that we would need in the hospital, tons of IV supplies. We all of a sudden realized those were precious to us. And so as we were watching, throwing all of this stuff out, I think it really did reset our minds around, we need to reuse this and not be so wasteful. So.
Mhm.
Yeah, I just cannot say enough like how profound that is to kind of come to that point. And I think there have been times where we have wondered about it, but never really kind of stopped and paused the way you did. So I'm so thrilled at like where this has brought us today and what you're going to share with us.
Yeah.
Now, for your special interest group, I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit about what you mean in terms of like the sustainability component. You did clarify a little bit with the title change, but like for you, what does sustainability mean?
Sure. So there's a lot of definitions when you look at environmental sustainability. What we're really thinking about is we have these products that we can't get rid of. And, the first step is always to cut. Well, in nursing education, we can't cut. We have to teach students how to use these products. We have to use these plastics. They have to be ready to go into the workforce. And so if you can't cut, what can you do from there? And so when we think about environmental sustainability, we're really thinking through the lifespan of the products that we have to use, all the way from how is that product sourced? What are the materials? How is it made? What's the carbon footprint impact of creating the material, shipping the material to us? How many times can we reuse that material? Can we recycle that material, or do we have to dump it? Could we repurpose it, reuse it for something? So all the way from creation to disposal of those products, how can we be more mindful about using them wisely and reducing our waste? Really, the ultimate goal here is just to use less, to reduce our impact.
Mm-hmm. And I would say we even, connecting with different corporations where the products were coming from to learn, do they have any sort of a buyback or a return policy that we could consider returning some of these products so that they could be, if anything, just melted down and remade again, because our products, at least in simulation, have not touched. It's really not considered a contaminated product. I mean, we're just using it within the sim center. So we felt like it was a pretty safe environment to start working with companies to say, hey, is there any potential of sending things back and you reuse them? So.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Like, this is something I hadn't even considered.
Mm-hmm. You want to talk about?
One of the first things that we've done with this, and I think this is one of the overarching lessons in sustainability, is you're going to hit roadblocks. Not everything is going to work perfectly the first time. It is an endurance game. It is a marathon, not a sprint. And so we had reached out to our manufacturer for, I believe it was our straight catheter kits that we started with, and just said, hey, we've got these kits. We reuse them to the point where, those packages are just not going to fold anymore. They can't practice opening it in a sterile fashion. It's just past its lifespan. Can we exchange? Can we return? Those products have so many different types of plastic within them. So if you think about the catheter tubing and then the hard plastic that connects the tubing to the bag, and then the bag is a different plastic. And some of that plastic is PVC and it can't be recycled. So we said, can we return these to you? Can you reuse these in any way? And it was a lot of roadblocks and being shifted around and run around, which really tells us that they don't have a plan either. And I think the more pressure we put on those companies, the better plan they will be forced to produce. And so that's kind of a long-term goal, is thinking about, well, there are multiple companies. I can choose where I'm going to purchase these products from. It doesn't need to be this particular brand. And so if you don't have a better plan than your competitor, maybe I buy from there. Maybe we put our money where our mouth is and we buy from the more sustainable company. So we have made some efforts like that. We've made some connections with our local hospital system because it is a large organization, and we've tried to maybe combine waste management, recycling with them. Those efforts are, again, difficult, but ongoing conversations. It's a lot about just trying to make connections.
Mm-hmm. And awareness. I think that talking to the different nurses on the different units to say, is there any way? And we were actually finding that in the OR, there was just massive amounts of waste that was happening. And so, I think opening those conversations, trying to create a larger, interdisciplinary group to work on the problem is really where we've come to, and trying to get awareness around it.
Wow, I love that. I have to say, I really liked the statement about it being a marathon and not a sprint, especially when you're talking about it's about more than just what's happening in my sim center with one specific group of supplies, kind of looking at how this rolls over. As you mentioned, the lifespan of a product from inception to like when we can no longer use it. Beth, I see that you had a question.
I have a couple of questions. I know these ladies pretty well, and I know that you all have been doing some research on sustainability. You're probably going to talk about that later. But one of my questions is, when I first started this years ago and tried to write an article but never got it finished, it's in draft from 2012 probably. I found most of the literature was centered around hospitals in terms of what hospitals do, and in terms of trying to be more sustainable and green. And I just wondered if you did that. And then I have one other question that I can say real fast. We buy the repackaging, like sleeves that are sterile, quote unquote, and repackage things when it gets to a different lifespan. And then we bought Tyvek paper and printed like our labels on our trait kits and re-glued them with a glue stick. Do you all do anything like that? Or have you found any other things that could be hints that people may do like that?
So I would say the
Yeah.
fun
Yeah.
part of being part of the SIG is we really spend about the last 15 to 20 minutes talking to all of the different members to find out, you know, what they're doing within their sim center. I think probably one of the most unique ones that I learned was, how do we dry out the IV tubing? And there was one of the members that was actually using an aquarium tank aerator that was actually drying out all of the tubing so that they can repackage it and then reuse it. And so that's the one that comes to mind for me, but there's been countless numbers of people coming to the meetings and saying, well, this is a new idea. I'm trying to think, some of them.
IV tubing, using it as a controlled drip rate for irrigation, for farming, for plants, basically as an automatic plant waterer, which I thought was genius as someone who does not have a green thumb. So it's, yeah, we're doing a lot of efforts in trying to reuse, you know, maybe you can buy a portion of that kit instead of buying an entirely new kit and just repackage that one section. So we do engage in a lot of efforts like that, just trying to expand the lifespan of anything that we're using. And then to circle back to your first part, unless you wanted to
No,
say.
go ahead.
So the first part of the question was, you know, when you looked at a lot of the research, it was about hospitals and what hospitals are doing or can or can't do. And we'll talk a little bit more about the work that we're doing in terms of research, but yes, it still largely looks like that. But a lot of that conversation, as Deb started alluding to, is about infection control. It's about what's a biohazard, what is a waste, how do you separate those things? Why is that such a problem when you're trying to recycle and making sure that things aren't contaminated? And this is a perfect think tank without that problem. The learning environment doesn't have those infection risks. We're not working with, you know, COVID or flu or RSV. These are theoretically clean products. And so you don't have any of those concerns about trying to really plan or try new things in terms of waste reduction.
The other thing I was going to say is we ended up donating a lot of the supplies that we couldn't figure out how to, or we had reused them to the point where we couldn't reuse them anymore, to an art, there was an art store.
Creative scrap reuse, I think.
So we could donate it and people were making art out of it, which I thought was
cool. We have that in Nashville too. We have 2 of them here. That is such a good idea. I love it.
Yeah.
It never occurred to me that a maker space would have an interest for supplies that had kind of outlived their usefulness for us, but could then be repackaged or repurposed into something completely different that probably we'd appreciate as art, just knowing the people that we are. So that's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, when I went to visit in Thailand, I was in the malls of Bangkok, and actually I found, I mean, they were massive, probably 15-foot tall structures, but they were made out of medical supplies, and it was IV tubing and different components out of the hospital. And I thought, oh my gosh, they figured this out. So I brought that back and we started getting ideas.
But it's crowdsourcing. It's too big of an issue to tackle on your own. It's too big of an issue to come up with all the creative ideas and solutions and all of that on your own. all of it is just too much.
I think that's a really powerful statement you make, because I can even see in the chat, people are sharing some of their suggestions, things that have worked for them. How are you able to kind of connect with other sim centers and then share this information? Is there something that your special interest group does that allows this information to kind of move forward?
Can we talk about the research at this point?
Sure.
Okay.
Absolutely. No, we started thinking, well, it's got so much information that we could collect, and we were getting within the SIG group, but then we decided, we really need to disseminate what is happening. And so both of us being PhD thought, well, the first thing would be to do is a systematic or scoping review. And so we launched on that. I want to say it's been almost a year ago now, doing a scoping review of the literature. And we have finally whittled it down to our final articles. We're extracting the data out of it now, and then we'll start writing it. So we're hoping to have that out probably in the next 2 to 3 months. I'm maybe being optimistic, but
I like optimism. Yeah.
Been very helpful to see what's in the literature. And it took us quite a while because there was so much. There were so many articles to really whittle it down to, the key articles that we felt were very important in this space.
And we really want to ultimately, if we're talking about optimistic goals, influence those INACSL standards of best practice. That's why we're all involved in the organization. It's because we want a clear base of standards and guidelines so that we're doing the best that we can do. And I think a lot of us are doing these small grassroots efforts. There's a lot of people out there that are trying. I think everybody on this call is probably that person in their sim center. But how do we support each other? How do we really present what those best practices are? And so that's the other reason we're doing the lit review, is to not only publish and disseminate in that way, but ultimately be able to bring within our own organization what those practices are and try to disseminate to the people who will use them the most.
I'm kind of excited about this as somebody who onboards and educates like our simulation team, to be able to include this as a component of the best practices that we follow in how we design, as well as facilitate the supplies being fiscally and environmentally responsible, I think is something that we definitely need to be aware of and mindful of.
I love what's happening in the chat. I mean, we even need to keep track of this chat and probably plan to do a presentation at the next INACSL and say, this is all of the, areas that we're seeing sim centers reuse, recycle, and repackage, and see if we can't give everybody on a large scale, ideas and opportunities.
I just threw in the chat my recycle workbook that we used to use with our student workers, so y'all are free to use that. It's a couple years old, so I've got a new director of operations, and we don't do as much as we used to because we're so busy, but it does have some cool ideas in it.
That's great, Beth. Thank you.
I love this stuff so much. I would do this full time if this is all I could do, but unfortunately it's not.
I love the passion. I love the passion. And for me, it is beyond just repackaging IV tubing. And I really kind of liked the point you made about like going to INACSL to kind of present this type of information and share it, because I think that's how we get like everybody really kind of thinking outside that box as you have, and talking to manufacturers and thinking about ways to be able to like cut down on the front end as well as the back end in terms of like the plastics that we're seeing in our sim centers. I'm curious, what challenges have you had when you've been trying to have these conversations about contaminated versus non-contaminated, biomedical waste versus not biomedical waste? Are you finding it that people are understanding the distinction with what you're using in the sim center versus like what their expectation of what this equipment's being used for?
I would say yes. I think they're understanding the distinction, which is good, because that's sort of step 1.A. 1.A. But beyond that, the problem that we run into is that they don't want to combine that with hospital waste, which often does have sorting and contamination issues, which is what a lot of the literature is about. And so even though we're creating what we view to be a lot of waste, 300 pounds of just IV tubing a semester alone feels like a lot of waste to me. But in terms of these large companies and manufacturers, they're thinking about waste in tons. And so we're not producing an amount of waste that is interesting enough for them to want to engage with it. So I think the biggest roadblocks for us have been less about interest or understanding and more about money.
Mhm, mhm.
And
Yeah, I would
speaking
agree.
of, speaking about money, have you been able to track how this has impacted like your bottom line in your sim center in terms of supply utilization, ordering and whatnot?
So I think that we're working right now very hard on trying to actually show the impact with the budget components. I can tell you that over the last 5 years, we've increased our admissions by 100 students in the cohorts, and yet our budget has remained the same. So we're clearly making progress on being able to reuse and repackage to the point where our overall budget hasn't, significantly increased. So,
And I think one easy and very doable change that you can bring back to your own simulation center, if it makes sense for your space, is Deb and Melissa, our other co-director here and co-founder of the SIG, had stopped making these kits. We used to have these bags of supplies and we would give one to each student at the start of the semester. And so they would each get their own sterile catheter kit and they would each get their own syringe and whatever it was. And we found that when those came back to us, some of them weren't used or they weren't actually coming back to us. And so that wasn't the most judicious use of those supplies. That's what students thought would be best. And it turned out that that wasn't what was best for everyone, and certainly not best in terms of supply use.
I think the funniest thing it was after we had done a large procedural training for all of our grad students. The staff had put in the sharps containers or put out sharps containers for the nurses to throw away their needles and their sharps, right? And when the class was all done, I actually opened up all the sharps containers. I was like, this is still reusable. And it was almost like this a really bizarre reaction from everybody. Like, you can't get into the sharps containers. And yet I was like, no, this is all absolutely reusable. And yet they were going through the proper motions of what they've been trained to do in the hospital, is to throw it into a sharps container. So, it's really us thinking outside or the staff thinking outside to say, this is not dirty. It's not actually, it can be reused. But
It's a mindset shift.
Yeah,
it's a mindset shift. And I think a lot of people are willing to do that. They just don't know how.
Such a great point. And speaking about mindset shifts, an argument that I have heard, and again, I've heard this in a couple of, as I've like traveled, is the time it takes to repackage, is it really worth doing it? When we think about the labor associated with repackaging supplies, I often get people push back and say, but is it really worth it to have to like essentially set aside this time to be able to do all of this repackaging? What are your thoughts?
Personally,
We have thoughts.
yeah, absolutely. No, I think not only are you saving the environment, but you're also saving on budget. And simulation really does ebb and flow. It goes in spurts, and then you have spurts of a ton of downtime. So, if the staff and people who are working on the simulation say, I don't have any projects to work on right now, as long as you've got some of those things in queue to say, yeah, let's sit down and let's repackage these things. I think it's smart. It may not be in the heat of the moment, something that you can do, but set it aside and come back to it, and, over the summer months or over the breaks that you have. And I think it's helpful to the environment too, obviously. But
I would add to that it is worth the time. I think the ebb and flow is a great note, definitely. I would also add that it doesn't need to be so labor intensive if we include people. And so when we did our own internal assessment of our own school, the vast majority of people who had responded, and maybe there's a little bit of a response bias there for the topic, but the vast majority who responded said, yeah, they'd be willing to spend 5, 10, 15 minutes to help with that repackaging at the end of their own sim. We have student workers that can help with that, your work study students who can do that work that isn't very, heavy thinking, it's just actions. But thinking from more of an INACSL standpoint, if we think about our standards of best practice, how much easier would it be if in our pre-briefing, we explained at the end of the simulation, I will expect you to repackage your sterile catheter kit the way that you found it. And in our debriefing, we'll look over them and make sure that everything looks good, and then we'll put them away together. If you spend 5 minutes doing those actions, you can spend a lot less labor time with just you, because we all know that our CLC staff are busy and they are overworked and maybe underfunded in a lot of cases, and it doesn't have to be all us.
I love that. Way to like to build awareness of this in our learners, like on this side of the like journey for them. I just love that you've included them in there, especially the part about the pre-brief and the debrief, like really formalizing it and making it, well, if we've got time, we'll take care of this, but actually making it, this is the expectation each and every time.
And one thing to add on to that is we actually met with some of our honor students. A few years back, we had kind of crowdsourced some information, got some of their opinions on things. And what we found is they initially thought that we were repackaging things to save money. That the purpose of us repackaging was so that we didn't have to spend as much on their supplies. And so the pushback was, I'm spending a lot of money to be here at the University of Michigan, which is not a cheap university. I should have all brand new stuff. And once we explained, hey, this is for environmental purposes, we're trying not to waste so much plastic, everyone was on board. And so I think it is important, as you said, to explain, to get buy-in, to really make sure that everybody's on the same page about these concepts.
That's
Oh,
great.
I love that. Yeah, that's a really great point, because that is oftentimes the things I get from students when we've used a repackaged supply is, well, I pay lab fees to be able to have like my own supplies. And so I think reframing that, so it's not about the dollars, but about the overall impact and the environmental component and sustainability is important. Beth, I noticed you popped something into the chat.
Yeah, I'm just throwing a couple of things in there. These girls know I'm crazy about this stuff. So, and I don't get to do it anymore. And so I'm just sharing anything I have, like some numbers that we did at one time. I actually have a document somewhere too that like compares the cost of a student worker. It even if we had to pay them, but right now we don't pay them because we use federal. So it all evens out because of that. But I put some budget stuff in there. I'm also going to throw a PowerPoint in there. I'm not trying to take y'all's thunder, but these are just things to share because you know how much I love it. So
not at all. We had called Kim Clark out as being one of our specific group members before, but we also have Beth Hallmark and Liz Robeson on the call, and they've both been involved as well.
And
yeah, I really love this stuff. And I think exactly what you just said a minute ago about it reframing it for students. That's what I did too, because we got so much pushback. But this generation of students is so into sustainability and keeping the earth healthy, et cetera, et cetera. So it's easy if you start out that way in the very beginning, telling them that. That's what we did. So yeah. Anyway.
Well, and if you travel globally too, it really becomes very eye-opening when you get to other sim centers, what you realize that what we maybe take for granted, that other sim centers don't necessarily have all this IV tubing. So can we, even if we're not going to, repackage it and reuse it, can we share then? Maybe there's opportunities. We definitely had that experience when we traveled and did some sim workshops, realizing that there's definitely ways we could share this.
I love that. And really, this is the place to kind of feel free to share. And in the chat, we are sharing strategies that some people have found to be effective. One of the points that's been brought up in the chat that I'd love to kind of just get your perspective on is like the recycling or repurposing of mannequins or task trainers.
I was just going to bring that up. Absolutely.
I saw it in the chat and I thought, I'm going to go ahead and throw it out there.
Yeah, I'll give you my thoughts, but I'd love to hear what the larger group is. We have several task trainers and mannequins that aren't necessarily kind of the newest, latest, greatest, and some of them are missing a hand or missing, small parts. And so we didn't want to throw them out. And so we contacted the local fire department and the local police department, who are now using them to do Narcan training, to, helping within a fire spot different people that may be in an area. So they absolutely said, we'll take anything you have. We would love to use this for training purposes. So.
I do think there was a comment in the chat about a company that will do some takebacks. Yeah, Kim, that was you that had put
Yeah,
that.
well, they were called CAE. I know they've changed their name, and I'm having a blank on what their new
Elevate,
name is.
elevate.
Okay, thanks, Beth. Thanks. But they would take back their old mannequins and give us a discount on new ones. I knew that. And certainly Echo Health has got I know, it's nice to fix things, right? Echo Health has got what they call a Melissa program, and they'll fix all different types of things. So that's kind of handy. And you can certainly buy refurbished items as well. You don't need a new mannequin, a refurbished mannequin, or refurbished pumps if you want. So
Yeah, to Kim's point, Layerdall is also doing a program where they will actually like take
okay.
back to, which is so nice to see. Julie, you had your hand up earlier to
I
share.
did, yeah. Gamard does the same thing. They will give you a discount, returning any mannequins. I have cannibalized some of my old mannequins. Like we had some really old ones. They were probably 30 years old. So we took all the hands and feet off of them, and our FMP students would use them for joint injections. And it's like, I didn't care if they got saturated. We were going to throw them away when they were done. Well, that's been 3 years and they're still using them. I took the skins off our old IV trainers that were ancient, and that's what I made my wearable trachs out of. I just cut a piece of the skin, sutured a trach in it, put a figure caught on the bottom and zip tied it or rubber band it really tight and filled it up with hand gel that was dyed a little yellow. Punched holes in the back of it, put some shoelaces. And what was great about it is when my students played the patients or even the faculty members, you could feel when the catheter was in the balloon, so you knew how to cough and act and be appropriate. And so that was great. And I just had this idea, like, I want to do this. It is fun though to set up your cameras to record when the housekeeping staff comes in to empty the trash and there's legs and torso sticking out of the trash. That was fun. But I've also sent some of our used mannequins that we no longer want to nursing homes, tech schools, things like that, that they use for training. And even at some of the CNA programs, they would take them to do positioning of patients and moving of patients. And so it was just getting in touch with contacts saying, hey, I've got this old thing. Could you use it?
Yeah. I never thought about taking them to the fire station or giving them to other departments and things. So that's great. I like that idea, the whole fire station and other schools.
One of the nursing homes used one of my old Annies to do fall prevention. They put her in a room and, have it off the bed, and they would have to find it and go take care of it. And it was like, you're not going to hurt her.
Yeah, she's fine.
Oh my gosh, that's great. Well,
I
if you
love
think
this.
about the evolution of simulation, there's actually a lot that we're now able to do within VR and AR and all of the different extended realities as well, which is, in some situations, one, making it more realistic for the students if it's a fire in the OR, or if we're, trying to manage our supplies and whatnot, doing it in VR, if it's really just learning the process and what we're supposed to be doing, or learning how to critically think and manage 3 or 4 patients, which is a lot of times what we're doing, we're not necessarily then wasting supplies, or using up all the plastic supplies. So it is a small, when it's appropriate, using it, and then we're saving on supplies that way as well.
I actually took the fingers off of some of my mannequins and stuffed them with, after like I pulled their sleeve, their skin off, and I stuffed them with foam, and then I injected it with like glucose water, and we were sticking it for blood glucose. Now it was hard to stick, but it was just a way to try to do something for them. But this is before anybody had any glucose sticks. This was years ago, but there's so many cool things to think about. And I think nurses are the most creative people because we've had to be when we worked in the hospital, right? And so I think that's why we're so good at this, to be honest with you.
I love this. I feel like this whole group could just do a workshop.
Yeah.
I was going to say, how do we bottle all of this and sell it to kind of share this knowledge and all of these helpful tips? I think it's amazing. And I liked your point about thinking about different ways that we're delivering simulation, which may kind of support some of this too, especially because Fidelity and like the concern about repackaging and Fidelity often comes up with us because they're like, well, if we open this package, it looks different than the original package. And so I love that we can look at different ways of being able to deliver similar experiences.
Mhm.
Now I notice, Greg, you have your hand up.
I was, I'm just thinking, would Pocket Nurse or Wall Cure, these type of organizations, be interested if we sent them all of our tubing and they could just repackage it and send it back out in looking identical? And would that potentially save money or not? I mean, the one of the big problems is that the initial product, well, I guess with the tubing now, it's $10, $12, $15 a set these days. But you know, maybe there would be a interest there. They could figure out if that was doable for them, if anybody knows those folks. And sharing sites. We just purchased 5, 6 new Spectrum IQ Baxter pumps and cases of tubing. The hospital switched last month to the Plum, the one that had the Baxter, and they switched to the Plum, and now we're looking to buy new Plum pumps and Plum tubing. And I will be offering up in the chat rooms what we have in stock. And I don't know, we probably won't give away the Spectrum pumps. We'll probably have to sell those. But yeah, we're going to be looking to see what we can do so that those just don't get tossed.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
That's exactly down the lines we're thinking about is how do we share with each other and how do we maybe put pressure back on these companies so that we can get really at the source of the products. I think the more of us do that, the more successful ultimately that effort will be.
I was just going to say, I think this is the great forum for us to start thinking about how we can get involved and how we can then be that united voice that goes to some of these organizations and says like, listen, how can we make this happen in a way that is feasible for you, but also like feasible for us, but overall reduces the amount of plastic that we're creating as we're trying to like meet the needs of like multiple stakeholders. So I love that. And again, that like staying in touch and communicating with each other.
Well, I guess the easiest way to get at that is you can join the INACSL Environmental Sustainability SIG.
Yes.
It is free if you're already an INACSL member. We generally meet monthly. I think we're looking at maybe expanding out to 2 meetings a month, one that's got kind of broader goals and one that's a little more internal, keep going with the lit review and the work that we're doing there. So always happy to have new minds, new faces, new ideas.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we do really need to start creating a repository of all these amazing ideas. I mean, just today, even in the chat, you know, to get everybody's ideas and start really putting a database together would be awesome.
Or really just adding to the databases that really have already been started a lot by Beth Hallmark. So we'll have
True,
to
yes.
give credit where credit's
You're
due.
right. Yes.
I know this has all been such amazing information, and I just feel like there's no excuse now. Like when I feel armed and ready to be able to say like it's the right thing to do, and here is why. So I really appreciate you kind of sharing your knowledge, your experience, your resources, and just even like some of the challenges that you faced and how you're planning to navigate those. I do always like to ask one question, like what are you most proud of in terms of the work that you've done with this special interest group? Are you comfortable sharing like what you're most proud of?
Yeah.
I think to date, we've put out some articles on national surveys, kind of understanding what the sustainability is. So I'm proud of that. I'm going to be really proud when this scoping review comes out, so that hopefully we can build and you know, go to the next level with some of the information. But
I think the flip side of that then is you think about the official stuff, the research and the things that you publish, and obviously we're proud of those things. But I think the other end of that is just being proud of the group and the takeaways that you get from just talking about the subject regularly and thinking about the subject regularly and how it impacts your own practice and my practice in the hospital now. You know, now before I grab a supply and bring it into the room, just so I don't have to put on that isolation gown again if I need it, I don't do that anymore. I'm not bringing those supplies. I'll leave it outside the door. If I need it, it'll be an easy grab. Someone in the hallway can actually give it to me, but I don't want to waste those supplies. It's the little mindset shifts that I've kind of felt in myself over the last couple of years working with this group. Just the little things that we pick up from each other.
Oh, I love that. Now, you mentioned that anybody can join the special interest group if you're a member of INACSL. If I'm interested and I want to join, how is the best way for me to do I reach out to you? What's the easiest way for me to be able to get on board?
Sure, the join is really simple. You just go to the INACSL website, and if you just type SIG into that search bar, or I think it's pretty prominently featured on one of the drop-down menus, it's fairly easy to find, intuitive and easy to join, I would say.
I agree. Yeah, absolutely. And feel free to email, you know, any of us in the membership we're happy to get you on board.
Sure. Yeah, I'm your current chair. So my email, I will put that in the chat as well. I'm sure it'll be posted somewhere, but just in case, you know, feel free to directly reach out or just let us know.
Wonderful. Any final thoughts?
I love the
as far
networking
as-
ideas. Go ahead.
As far as cost savings, we were very surprised. We were having difficulty with getting drug library for our Alexis, or not Alexis, Alaris pumps. And we had a bunch of them, and I was able to dig out a purchase contract from 2007 when we initially bought some Alaris Alaris pumps, and the CPU, whatever they call that middle part, and showed it to the BD and said, we're a customer. They then decided that we were going to get the new updates, and they sent technicians out to go over everything to make sure. We had to pay to have another company bring the equipment up to standard. But then we purchased a new widescreen, 2 of them, and pumps. They sold them to us for what we paid for them in 2007.
Wow.
Their contract, if you look at the fine print, I don't know if there still includes it, but from back then, was a commitment to hold the price to the contracted price.
That's impressive.
Yeah, so just I was like, I had spent hours looking for any evidence, and if you could see my office, it has worsened my habitual saving of things. But it was worth it when we found that out. It really was. And then they provided us with the software to create our own Good
Oh,
luck.
nice.
I love that, Greg. And I think Julie just echoed in the chat what you said. It's sometimes worth like just asking. And I think, that's something that we kind of really need. I mean, I know we all get really busy and sometimes we forget to go back, but I love this, just asking these questions, asking the people who are supplying our product, asking our partners and stakeholders, really just kind of pulling over and just asking to see what that answer might be can be so important. Thank you so much, Greg. That is such a great example of just stopping to look and to ask. And, the savings alone, as well as like not dumping a bunch of pumps that don't work or don't meet the needs of our learners now, I think is such an important lesson to take from that.
Mhm.
I've
I
had really
agree.
good luck talking to vendors at conventions and conferences as well, because sometimes they're really they really want to please you. I mean, I have a handful of Chester chests and this one valve kept leaking and I just mentioned it to Andrew, and next thing I know, he sent me 10 for free. And so it's just, I think sometimes it's just being nice, making relationships with your vendors that you use all the time. And then we share a lot. I have a biomedical engineering, well, I used to, at my last position, we had biomedical engineering students and 2 of them were my student workers. And so they tinkered and changed batteries in several of my IV pumps that weren't working and no longer under warranty. And sometimes I would just give them the stuff that was broken to the program and let them go play with it. And
Great idea too.
Mhm.
utilizing your 3D printers and your universities. I built stomas, wearable stomas. We built telemetry boxes. Just sometimes you just say, hey, I've got this idea. I just don't know how to do it. And they just go do it.
Wow.
Mhm.
I
I
think,
guess my overall last thoughts just kind of build on all of that. A little bit is better than nothing. Anything is better than what you were doing before. And the more you do, I think the more you continue to do as it all becomes habitual.
Julie, if you were willing to share the can't remember, but the 3D image that the 3D printer uses to make the stomas.
I don't have those, and when I left that position, I no longer have access to those files.
Shoot.
But
Okay.
all I
But
did
Greg,
was
this
I
is the
built
place
it.
to ask for it. So for sure, I love that we're asking.
I have some of the
Because-
basic ones for my telemetry box, but the printers there at OU, they made it even better. And so I think I have some of that files that I'm happy to share. I believe in open resources, and they even had the clips that would stick to my EKG patches. And all we did was buy 5-color wire and hot glue wire. And we had telemetry, and then I just taped a picture of the box and the picture of, like, how they always had a little map and how to set it
Mhm.
up. We
I
just
like that.
made stickers and put them on the back, and they actually had to go do the muscle memory of putting on the telemetry units. So it's
Great. Yeah.
yeah, but a lot of times I think if you show them a picture, and I said, this is what I'm thinking about, and I want little buckle holes so I can put the elastic bands so they can wear them, and kind of described what I wanted, and they created it for me. But I have a friend, maybe I can get those files.
I love this. This goes back to all you have to do is ask. And I think the sharing that I know really has kind of been a huge theme in our time together is the sharing of knowledge, the sharing of resources, and the finding a way for new to you to be like just as great as brand new when we think about being able to make the most of what we are able to get.
Yeah.
Jayla, I noticed you unmuted.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up with Julie, kind of what she said. As far as I understand, like what to do with warranties, and we do the ECHO program too for that. But you kind of touched on, repair of equipment, ongoing repair of equipment. For those of us that don't have, we're not at the hospital, we don't have biomed. We do the best we can with like, can we fix it, or can we send it somewhere to fix it? And oh, we can't, let's just buy another one, So if you don't have biomed students, I just wanted to network and ask here, do you guys have another way of figuring that part out?
Honestly, YouTube.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
always
Just doing the best we can, muddling through. Yeah, got it.
Or maybe touching base with your hospital system too. So if we're very fortunate and spoiled because we are attached to a large hospital system, but there may be a local system in your area that might be willing to kind of just give you a helping hand. because every hospital pretty much has some kind of
Yeah, that's
biomed
true.
department.
Yeah, I agree with you, Deb, and sometimes it's just worth an ask. And, you know, they'll probably charge you. I know, and when I was in Texas, we had an independent firm that would come do our yearly maintenance on our beds, and it wasn't super expensive, and it was very much cheaper than Hillrom. But they would just come do our maintenance for us once a year, and that was a good cost saving. So they're just, I think, you put it out in the public and you'll find an answer.
Yeah, so true. Now, speaking of putting things out, Liz has popped something into the chat for us. It looks as if it's the Innov to Learn Reuse program information. Thank you so much for popping that in there. I'll give everybody a moment to kind of download it as well. Well, I know that our time is kind of coming to an end, so I wanted to say thank you so much to our guests who've kind of come in and shared a little bit about the work that you're doing to raise awareness. And really, for all of you attending, thanks for being so willing to share some of your solutions, some of the things that you have discovered, some of the resources that you are using to allow us to really kind of put those into practice and kind of continue with this mission of really supporting our environment, minimizing our plastic use, and finding creative ways to continue to use what we do have in our SIM centers. Before I go, any questions, any final questions?
Hey, Nicola, Greg had a question about Biomedical. Has anyone else received the notice from Biomedical of their impending bankruptcy?
Oh, no, I haven't seen anything. But good to know, and kind of maybe be on the lookout if this is like something or a particular company that you use. All right. Well, I wanted to say a special thank you to Ariel, who has been working with us behind the scenes and kind of keeping all of this moving forward. So I did want to say thank you. I want to thank all of you for taking the time to join us this afternoon. Again, a special thank you to our special interest group who is willing to share your information. I know I speak for everyone here when I say I'm excited to see this study when it comes out, the scoping review, and kind of get a feel for this. And I'd also attend a session at INACSL if you were hosting one on like some of these strategies to help kind of sustain the environment. Our next Fireside chat is potentially December, to be determined. We know it's a busy time for everybody, so we may or may not see you before the holidays, but we'll certainly see you after the holidays. I'm wishing you all a safe rest of your week and rest of the quarter if we don't see you before then. But again, thank you so much for joining us around the fire today to be able to kind of share our knowledge and kind of get an idea of, you know, how this can work for us in our centers and how maybe we can partner together to move forward to make this change like on a large scale. So thanks so much, everybody. Have a wonderful rest of your day. To Deb and the rest of my special interest team, I really want to say thank you to Deb and Jessica for like coming in and spending some time with us today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank
It's
you.
been fun.
Nicola, can you stay on for just a minute? I have a
Yeah,
question.
sure can. Thank you so much.
Have a good rest of your week, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
So when you said you click those 3 dots to save the chat, I see it, but I don't see where it goes.
I was going to say, I'm going to have Ariel there.
It saves to your computer. So once the Zoom itself ends, you'll receive like a pop-up letting you know that the meeting chat has been saved.
I'll probably get 12 copies.
Better than none.
Yes.
Thank you so much. I appreciate this. This was more, well, I knew it was going to be really interesting, but this was way more fun
A
than,
lot of fun.
I
Can you
thought
share
it-
the
yeah.
chat with us, Julie?
huh?
We should have it. I have it.
Oh, did you save?
Yeah, I have it saved.
Oh,
We're good.
perfect.
Tony,
Okay.
Tony is also asking if someone could just send out the chat as well. So I don't
Yeah.
know if that's possible, Ariel, but I see Tony's still on and has popped
Oh,
something
Ariel
in the
just said
chat.
she would send it out to
Ariel said
everybody.
yes.
Perfect.
so-
All right. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you
Thanks,
so
guys.
much.
Have a great
Jessica
day.
and Deb, I want to say a special thank you. Really appreciated like your willingness to share, to come on and to kind of tell us a little bit about what you're doing. It was just wonderful. It was
Oh,
absolutely wonderful. I could have done another hour of this, but
that was
I
a great
actually,
group. That was
Yeah.
a really
Yeah.
good group.
We could also do another hour of this, so don't tempt us.
we'll bring you back for part 2. We'll bring
Part
you
2,
back for
yes.
part 2. But I
I
did
just-
want to say thank you so much. I appreciate both of you being here today, especially because it's kind of like towards the end of your day. So grateful. And just, excited about the work you're doing, truly excited about it. So we definitely would love to have you back, like with your study or your scoping review, to share a little bit about that too.
Well, and I think you've obviously, in my mind, I was like, oh my gosh, there's so much to share here and people are so passionate about it. We need to be doing something at INACSL
I think
to
so.
have sessions on this. So,
Mhm.
you know, I'm that really in my mind was like, okay, that's a done deal. So
Mhm.
we'll put in some abstracts and see if we can't get it to go.
Well, if nothing else, I might bring it to the membership committee and see if we could just have you host something, even if it's not like abstract specific. I'm sure if we talk to the board and just really kind of share about a lot of the great ideas that came out and this like huge interest that we had, I'm
Mhm.
sure there must be something we can do where we'd be able to even have lunch.
Yeah, yeah. Or have an art center, have an
Oh,
art
yeah.
INACSL and everybody can build with all their.
I know, right? Take it back to their center.
Yeah.
Thank you both. Jessica, Deb, I
right.
cannot say thank you
Yeah.
enough. It was absolutely nice to meet you both and your willingness to share and kind of move us forward. Just inspirational.
Yeah,
It was
nice
our
to meet
pleasure.
you.
Thank you.
Have a
Okay,
great rest
thank
of your
you.
day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good night. Ariel, thank you. Thanks, Lori.
No problem. See you later.